5 centimeters per second, or its Japanese title, Byosoku 5 centimeters, is a bitter, almost love story between a boy and a girl who, like cherry blossom petals, slowly drift further and further away from each other, almost as if drifting away and downwards at a pace so painfully and beautifully slow that it is in and of itself moving at 5 centimeters per second. The studio behind this film is Comics Wave Inc., which also released popular titles such as Your Name, The Garden of Words, and soon-to-be-released Suzume. This studio seems to tell a collection of stories that are all very grounded in everyday high school life, but with many scattered philosophical and subtle nuances to its narrative. The studio also tends to depict each of its stories with stunning imagery and wonderfully composed scenery that push the industry standard of background art to its absolute limit. No matter what frame, scene, or characters involved, there is hardly ever any dip in quality, attention to detail, or lack of depth at any point in these stories. But whereas some would find this style best suited to a heartfelt romance, 5 centimeters per second subverts that expectation in a very tricky way, one that leaves the viewer feeling mixed and perhaps even dejected by the end of it. 5 centimeters per second, within itself, features 3 stories, the first of which is titled Cherry Blossom. Takaki Tono is a young boy who just so happens to be extremely good friends with young Akari Shinohara. They spend their days in and out of school, teasing each other and running through their neighborhood. Classmates taunt them by clearly seeing how close they are, almost egging them on to just admit they're in some sort of relationship. Whenever things like this happen, Takaki doesn't care. Akari is the only one who matters, and more than anything, he just wants to protect her. They graduate elementary school and plan on being as close as ever, but a slowly devouring tragedy presents itself. Akari is moving away, far away, enough to make regular visits nearly impossible. Akari hates this. Takaki mournfully resents this. Regardless of this news, Takaki promises to do his best to keep in contact and write to her often, as Akari promises to do the same. More time goes by, and as the bond between these two remains strong, yet another problem rears its head, threatening an even further separation. Takaki is moving, increasing the distance between each other even more. With conviction and determination in his heart, Takaki makes plans with his beloved childhood friend as he arranges a meeting one more time. He'll go all the way out to where Akari is in the dead middle of winter, no matter what, with the promise of seeing her for one more chance. One last opportunity to tell her how he really feels, to finally confess that he has deep feelings for her and doesn't want this to simply be the end of it all. After a long journey, Takaki has missed the agreed-upon time by hours. Many hours. Snowfall and delays have kept him at a standstill as he has to patiently and suffocatingly sit in place as public transportation has been heavily affected by the intense weather of that night. After a grueling wait, with little to no hope of ever being able to see Akari again, Takaki slumps his way into a resting room within the station he's finally arrived at. Akari wakes up. She'd waited all day for Takaki, for as long as it would take to finally see him again. She hadn't moved an inch. The two are able to talk with each other just as candidly as ever before, with the distance between them seeming totally insignificant after all this time. As the station closes and the young couple wander out into the snowy streets, Takaki and Akari feel the warmth between each other. They're just as close as they've ever been, and now, after the pain of being so far from each other for so long, perhaps even closer now. Takaki had planned to confess his feelings in a letter, as per typical Japanese protocol, but that had been blown away by the blizzard in his travels. A kiss says it all. The two embrace. They spend all night with each other in a nearby shed, keeping each other warm through the cold. Morning comes. Takaki is off to return home. Akari stays behind. Takaki promises to write more, to call more. He doesn't want this to be the end of it. Akari doesn't want it to be over either. The two are once again separated by an insurmountable distance. Like cherry blossoms, they begin to drift once more. Takaki is in his 3rd year of high school. Archery is now his preferred sport to pass time, as he skillfully trains and plain-facedly fulfills his routines. A young Miss Kanae Sumida adores him from afar, making slow strides in getting to know him better, and hopefully be closer to him. She trains by the coast as she tackles waves over and over, hoping to finally overcome something monumental, something that would make not only herself, but her older sister proud. She makes sure to conveniently be there whenever Takaki is about to head home, grabbing drinks together and making sure to do everything she needs to be in the same space as him. Takaki is friendly and never turns her away, but something is amiss. He always seems to have his phone out, texting someone, but as to who is unknown. He seems mentally adrift at times, but Kanae won't pry. After toiling over her future, what she wants out of life, and struggling to conquer any of the waves she tackles, she once again makes the very same pit stop she and Takaki would make regularly. But strangely, Takaki is nowhere to be seen. She wanders for a bit, searching for him as his bike has been left unattended to, and after a small search, finds him, sitting atop a small hill, once again with his phone out, texting. They share a friendly moment together and make their way home, briefly discussing the upcoming launch of a rocket nearby. It's close, but not quite here yet, with each of its moving parts being transported slowly, carefully. Takaki's mind is set on one single dream, something he had held on to for years now. He dreams of Akari. While opening his phone once again, he briefly writes as if making a journal entry, perhaps a message for a certain someone. But instead of being sent, it is deleted. Takaki laments as to just how long he's been opening his phone and sending text messages to no one. Today is finally the day. Kanae can feel it. The sun is shining, the waves are crashing, and she's finally going to do it. She's going to conquer what she's dreamed of. With all of her skill and effort coming to fruition, she rides her first wave. Things make more sense, and she feels a rush of confidence. If ever she was going to do it, today is the day. She's going to tell him how she feels. Once again, she rides home with Takaki, and even adjusts her own choice of drink to reflect his. She's on the precipice of finally saying the words, finally confessing, but she still can't do it. The moment passes and they continue along, but her bike has suddenly stopped working. It had been stalling for quite some time now, but it's finally broken down for good, at least for the moment. Takaki insists that they simply walk together. He can get his bike later, providing yet another opportunity for Kanae to muster up the strength to confess. But the monumental contraption has taken liftoff. The moment of silence, the opportunity to confess, the chance to say what she needs to, escapes into the stratosphere. She couldn't do it. She admits defeat. She can see that Takaki's mind is elsewhere, concerned for someone else. He's still the one she likes. Nothing's changed, but perhaps Kanae is simply tackling a wave far too large, one she can never quite ride. Kanae retreats with her feelings left bottled inside. Her story comes to its close. Takaki has joined the workforce. He's in tech, working as a programmer. Akari is preparing to get married. Takaki has begun to feel the weight of isolation. Akari remembers the days they shared, the train station they met in, the snowy streets they wandered. Takaki finds himself despondent, uninterested in the daily happenings of his life, once again failing to acknowledge those who wish to be closer to him. Akari thinks back. Takaki laments how far they've drifted, how impossible the distance has become, how close it felt before, a feeling they had both held out for. Takaki takes a brief break from his workstation as he walks along the same street he had trekked long ago. Back then, he passes a woman. Takaki winces as he turns to look behind himself, but a passing train obstructs whoever stands on the other side. The train continues to obstruct. until finally it passes. The woman is no longer there. The petals have fallen. The slow descent has come to its end. Takaki and Akari go their separate ways. This is 5 centimeters per second. The bittersweet story of slowly losing touch with someone who was once an everyday part of one's life. The tragedy of how latching onto the past can make itself a dagger to those who have yet to come. This is the story of dreams from youth being let go, how distance slowly grows, while memories gently fade, how, ever so slowly, at 5 centimeters per second, things, people, ideas, dreams can slip away. This is my favorite movie. With a total runtime of 63 minutes and having been released in 2010, this movie has made the feelings of loss and sadness within me feel common. The restlessness of faded connections feel somewhat inevitable. It's a sad movie, but a good one. Because sometimes you need to feel sad. Sometimes you can't help but feel adrift. Sometimes the gentle, harrowing, unavoidable distance that grows between people is simply just how the petals fall.